Welcome to the Akashic Library.
The idea of a formula for love, it feels a little weird, right? Kind of like we're trying to turn this beautiful, messy mystery into some kind of science experiment. But what if we're not talking about a formula? What if we're just talking about the core ingredients that are almost always there when a real connection starts to happen?
So can you actually make someone fall in love with you? I mean, that's a pretty bold question. And let's be honest, it probably makes most of us feel a little icky. It sounds manipulative, almost unnatural. And you know what? You're not wrong to feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. This feeling that it's a bit spooky, it's totally understandable. It just seems to go against everything we believe about romance, that it should be this spontaneous, magical thing. But what if the set root isn't some kind of trick, but, well, a deeper understanding of what really makes us connect as human beings?
And see, this is where things get interesting. The problem might be that our culture, well, it often gets the whole starting point of romance completely wrong. We've been fed a certain story about how love begins, and it turns out that story might be leaving out the most important part.
We're so used to thinking that romance starts with these big, cinematic moments, right? The dramatic kiss, the sweeping embrace. But real, lasting connection, that often starts somewhere much quieter. It begins with this deeply nourishing and honestly profound feeling of being truly known by someone else. So how do we get there?
Well, it all starts with our first essential ingredient, a deep, and I mean deep, genuine curiosity.
I love this definition of attraction. It's so powerful. It says that being attracted to someone isn't really about their looks or their job. First and foremost, it's about wanting to know more. It's having this real, constantly renewing appetite to just keep asking questions and understand who they are.
But okay, we're not talking about just any questions. We all know the drill with small talk. The superficial stuff on the left, the kind of curiosity that builds love, is about unearthing something deeper. It's about asking these bigger, gentler questions that get right to the heart of a person. Why are you the way you are? What are the things that have shaped you? And where do you see yourself going from here?
For example, imagine hearing a question like this. It signals that someone is genuinely invested in your story. They're not just passively listening, they're really trying to understand the choices you've made and the feelings that were behind those choices.
And this is a brilliant example of how this curiosity doesn't have to feel like an interrogation. It can be a gentle observation, a quiet wondering that just opens up a safe space for you to think and share more if you feel like it, with absolutely no pressure.
So to kind of wrap up this first ingredient, the curiosity that truly matters is one that's sensitive to our pain. It's gentle, it's not pushy, and it's not just interested in our highlight reel, It's genuinely interested in our struggles, our past hurts, and the things that didn't go so well. That is where real connection is forged.
Okay, so once someone really starts getting to know us, well, that can bring up a whole new fear, right? And that brings us to our second ingredient. The source calls it broad-mindedness, but you might know it as radical acceptance. This right here, this is the fundamental terror of intimacy. We desperately want to be seen, but we are absolutely terrified that if someone sees all of us, the flaws, the weird habits, the past mistakes, they will judge us, and then they'll pull away. So what's the antidote to that terror? It's broad-mindedness. It's the ability to signal to another person in these really subtle ways that you have a huge capacity to accept them just as they are. It's not about making a big speech, it's about showing it.
And how do you show it? Through these little indirect revelations about your own imperfections. By casually mentioning a time you weren't exactly at your best, like this wonderfully human example, you send a really powerful message. You're saying, hey, I'm not perfect, and I don't expect you to be either. Your messy parts are totally safe with me.
And the outcome of that acceptance is, wow, it's this incredible feeling of psychological freedom. It's the relief of knowing you don't have to perform. You can be tired, you can be scared, you can be irritable, and you'll still be accepted. It would be more than fine.
And that feeling of safety, it leads us right into our third and final ingredient. Now, this one might sound simple, but it is perhaps the most essential one of all: kindness. We all have that voice in our heads, don't we? That harsh inner critic. It's the voice that asks these brutal questions whenever we fall short. It's constantly pointing out our failures and our weaknesses.
And just look at the answers our inner critic gives us. They're so cruel, right? So black and white, you're just not good enough. But love offers a totally different story, a much kinder interpretation.
It looks at our failures not as proof that we're wretched, but as the result of our circumstances, our history, maybe the encouragement we just never got.
And this is why this is so important. For a lot of us, that self-critical voice is just our default setting. We're so used to beating ourselves up that we often literally cannot generate these kinder, more compassionate stories for ourselves. We need to hear them from someone else.
All right, so when you put these three ingredients together, that's when you start to see the real foundation of a connection that can actually last.
These are the three pillars that build that foundation. First, you've got deep curiosity, the desire to truly know someone. Second, radical acceptance, which creates a safe space for their whole messy self. And third, essential kindness, to offer a generous and loving take on their flaws and failures.
It's just so easy to get caught up in the checklist our culture gives us, right? We hope for a partner who's pretty or tall or rich, and hey, there's nothing wrong with those things, but they are not the materials you use to build something that can actually last. They can't shelter you when things get tough.
And in the end, that's what we're all really looking for, isn't it? A home. A psychological shelter that can protect us from the storms inside our own minds and the storms of the world. And that shelter, that home, is built from these three simple but absolutely profound ingredients. So the real question is, are we looking for them in others? And maybe more importantly, are we offering them ourselves?
Change doesn't start with action. It starts with insight. In the next video, we'll look at how understanding transforms struggle into direction, without force or pressure.